back for our last presenter, last but not least. Our final presenter has a background in biochemistry, physics, neuroscience, and precision engineering. And she's applied that to art, science, design, culture, and has been, her work has been shown in MASS MoCA, Cooper-Hewitt, and many other museums. She's had a ton of accolades. She's a guest teacher at the Royal College in London, at NYU, and numerous other institutions. And she's here to share her latest project with us, Natalie Jeremijenko.
No, I don't have to window. I know my voice. How's that? Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. My name's Natalie Jeremijenko. Thank you for reminding me of that. But I do often feel I need to introduce what it is that I do. So I'm still figuring this out, of course. But I've got a lab and clinic at NYU, which is where I'm based. It's not very far away, which is one of the reasons why I'm here. Not to entertain you, but to think about how I might conspire with you. So I run something called the Environmental Health Clinic that twists the definition of health, if you will. Let me redefines health, twists the definition of health to treat the environment as a health issue and health as an environmental issue. Well, I don't know, it's interesting. If we use our children as canaries, which is not what I'm recommending, but and look at what pediatricians do with their time when they're seeing children, right? And they spend about 80 to 90% of their time on 5 top issues. Number 1 is asthma. Number 2 is developmental delays, ADD, autism spectrum. Number 3 is 400-fold increases in rare childhood cancers, which take up an enormous amount of time. And number 4 and 5 are diabesity, which is a conflation of childhood diabetes and 6-month-old infants with obesity issues, right? Interesting, and none of those, or what's common about all of those things is the environment is implicated in each and every one of those things. So another way to illustrate this, it's probably a little bit less disturbing, but still unnerving, is to look at our animals that cohabit with us. And I think actually our animals can teach us a lot. A wonderful statistician just looked at 38 species of animals that cohabit with humans to see what's going on with them. And do you know how many of those 38 species? These are lab rats and pets and feral coyote and other feral animals that cohabit with us, right? How many of them showed evidence of the obesity epidemic?
38.
38, exactly. So implicates the environment again, rather than just your exercise patterns and how much you like to eat. So again, turning to the birds and the flight theme of the night, we can learn a lot from them. So this is actually communication technologies for, you've got cell phones, but birds have been left behind. So I designed some communication technologies for birds. These are perches. When a bird lands on it, it triggers a sound file that, let me see if this will play. It says something like this.
Here's what you need to do. Go down there and buy some of those health food bars, the ones you call bird food, and bring it here and scatter it around. There's a good person.
Okay. So actually where I've set this up in a couple of different museums, in the Whitney up the road here, we set up 6 different perches. Each perch has a different argument, so the birds can jump on the different ones and experiment on people to see which argument best elicits cooperative behavior. And in the Whitney installation, 8-to-1, the most popular argument from the bird's point of view to make people cooperate was this one.
Tick, tick, tick. That's the sound of genetic mutations, of the avian flu becoming a deadly human flu. Do you know what slows it down? Healthy subpopulations of birds, increasing biodiversity generally. It is in your interests that I am healthy, happy, well fed. Hence, you could share some of your nutritional resources instead of monopolizing them. That is, share your lunch.
So Biology 101 from the pigeons is, I think, an interesting way to learn how our industrialized food systems have become cauldrons of pathogenicity. So this is one of the, I'm going to skip a couple of projects because I don't have much time, but I'd love to come back to this one. It's a new one. I'm going to skip this one. I want to go into here because we have an interesting new opportunity that the FAA has given us strategically. They've launched this new class of aircraft and this new plane class, the light sport aircraft. This is one of 35 of those sexiest plane. I think it wins the sexiest award. Some friends of mine have designed it, the Icon A5. But it's one of 35 of these new planes that are coming into the market. And anybody here got a light sport pilot license? No? We could have in 20 hours. Now, any one of us could be a licensed pilot in 20 hours. It's easier than getting a driver's license in New York City, right? So FAA has created this interesting opportunity for us to re-examine, should flight be the single most damaging thing we do as individuals, or could we radically reimagine, use this opportunity to rethink our urban mobility so that we're not actually degrading our... So an interesting thing, when we think about flight systems, we have a lot of engineering energy going into thrust systems, right, and improving the efficiency, which the aircraft industry has done a great job of, I have to say. But in your standard commercial airliner, the ecological footprint, if you will, of the catering services is much larger than the thrust systems, the fuel. And by far the biggest impact is in the landing infrastructure, because we have this habit of building airports on what we used to call cheap, flat swamps near proximal to cities. Now we call them wetlands, biodiversity hotspots, the most critical ecosystems for sequestering CO2, protecting the terrestrial ecosystem, nurseries for marine organisms. The only technology we have for breaking down a whole class of industrial contaminants and hydrocarbons, recharging aquifers. I mean, wetlands are the technology of the 21st century. You heard that now. They produced an interesting new opportunity. I just want to show you that as a sort of iPhone accessory to the Icon A5, we produced for the San Jose Biennial this. I just want to give you another quick look at the Icon A5. You'll note that it's an amphibious plane. It can land on water. And I did a little promo a couple of years ago with US Airways landing in that little river over there. We call the wet landing the Hudson, right? You remember that? Right, to demonstrate that wet landings are, of course, established infrastructure that we could exploit. But in this case, we built a 500-foot wet landing to go with your new plane. You can have your wet landing. Costs about $5,000 to build a wet landing, which, of course, can be designed as a biodiversity hotspot and used for all the urban things we need. But for those of us who need a prosthetic for the imagination, I've also additioned these strap-on flight simulators, right? So you can see here, you can convert your car into a portable wind tunnel and stick these out the window of the car to experience that, we explore that wonder of flight. So, and I would argue quite seriously against any of you that the transferability of the pilot skill from the angle of attack and the maneuverability of these different biomimetic wings is more transferable from this experience than, I'll show you here, some squadron training, and from your standard console-based video or computer flight simulator, right? So this, once you've actually earned your wings, you can then explore. I mean, this is the big cultural speed bump we have, that most of us can't imagine ourselves as pilots, let alone our children as pilots, right? But remember, it's 3D space, it's hard to run. Anyway, we can go back to arguing flight, but then if you can demonstrate reasonable flight effectiveness. You can then strap on these 16-foot wingspan wings and start to fly. I think I have some video here of the wet landings in San Jose, where you can practice your wet landing and fly. Of course, these zip lines, or fly lines as we call them, are not about speed and terror or height, but about the gentle phenomena of lift, the wonder of flight, the maneuvering. You don't hang like a sack of potatoes, nor do you fly exactly like Superman, but it feels even better, I think. Let's go back to here. Recently, in October, we went to Toronto in collaboration with architect-artist Usman Haq. We flew hundreds of people through downtown Toronto for an event, Flight Path Toronto project for the Nuit Blanche event. Past City Hall, across Nathan Phillips Square, we built 15 scaffolding towers. A couple of them were 80 foot tall. And of course, to participate, you had to go through a flight school, and then you got authorized with an autopilot license, which of course you signed yourself, and then you could strap up. And I want to show you, it was very popular with the grandmothers. And then fly. This was your graduation ceremony, where as you came out of flight school, you got to demonstrate your flight prowess. And of course, you'd already done a written test to talk about, answer questions like, why don't bird wings look like plane wings, or vice versa? And then of course you strap on and experience the flight. There's some interesting sounds to go with these, but sorry. These are the RGB lasers were actually interesting because people, it was activated by people's voices. So as you yelled, you pulled up a kind of an ephemeral wall and people would fly through it. It actually gave you the sensation of touching them. It was really, I was skeptical about that working, but it did. I'm going to finish off with just a couple more very quick things because this is about what I'm asking you to think about doing in Long Island City. Think about joining the Imaginary Air Force, which is a micro-investment in producing it. Or you can join the urban agriculture movement by participating in the pharmacy, which is perhaps the most straightforward way that you can now improve our air quality by the only known technology we have for improving air quality. And the reason for the popularity of urban forestry is leaf area index, or leaves, right? So how do we get inexpensively, quickly, leaf area index into our cities? The pharmacy project is about doing that. One of the systems is this very simple Tyvek-based urban agriculture system called the Ag Bag, which hangs on any railing or parapet or double-hung window and creates arable territory out of thin air. It's, I won't go through this, but it's a closed system agriculture. There's no runoff. It drains into a polyacrylamide gel. So we don't have to do agriculture where we degrade the watershed, right? It then re-releases it back into the soil. And of course, produces in this facade 76 street trees worth of leaf area index in one growing season because we're using urban plants. And all of the urban plants and all of the projects that are in Long Island City depend on each the sort of micro-investment of time, labour, interest and imagination of many people. An interesting way to re-explore, re-embed, rethink, reimagine, redesign our relationship to natural systems here, now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have time for a couple questions, and there's a question.
How do I get an Ag Bag for my office?
Email me. I'd love to get you an email.
One more question? One more, go ahead.
So you seem to have a lot of environment and have disgruntled neighbors who are upset with their view. Are you running into either pushback from local communities where you've engaged these projects, or have you had the cities and local planners coming to you to integrate some of these into future projects?
No.
What has been the response from
Local neighbors as well as politics.
Politicians and local neighbors, particularly with regards to the ag bag?
Right. So the facade that I quickly showed you that had the larger installation at Postmasters Gallery in Chelsea actually earned me a Class 1 violation from the Department of Buildings. I had to go to building court. And the reason why you don't see them as very mature is it only was up for a month and a half before they actually, that's next to for Class 1 violation. That's what construction firms get when they kill people, right? So I then had to go to court, actually, because I didn't have a permit to do this, right? So we went to court and begged them not to give me the many, many thousands of dollars of fines, and said, well, I'm really sorry I didn't have a permit because they didn't seem an appropriate permit, right? To put up, to do, refacing a facade, you don't need a permit. To put up a, what are those climbing things? Trellis, yes, you don't need a permit. And so what permit should I use? Well, there isn't one, right? So the strategy we're using now is that actually the only permit that is even vaguely similar is one for advertising banners, so for advertising. So now we're going to put them up as advertising. Advertising what exactly, I'm not sure. It's maybe up to you but complying with that permit structure seems to be one strategy within which to get these up and get the air quality improvements that we could all share in. And also some really delicious edibles that come out of it. Black pansy, flash-infused vodka from your ag bags is really something special.
Well, that's all the time we have now, but all of the speakers will be available after. Natalie Jeremijenko, thank you so much. I have to keep a list of the things that I'm going to forget to do, like, our Twitter handle is lucid222, so hashtag, yeah, thank you, Pete. I also have to thank Pete, Gallo, Teji, Thomas, Joseph Robertson, Yale Fox, Adam Harvey, and the rest of the Lucid team for helping us put this all together. It would be impossible without them. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank Drum as well for being such a gracious host. Thank you. Radical Media for providing our video camera and technical support. And also to let you know two things. One, that our next event is going to be on April 4th, and we've got a great lineup already. It's not absolutely confirmed, but if you love jazz, if you love, I always get it wrong, what is it called? Molecular gastronomy, and it's not just small food, but, and biomimicry, then you will love the next Lucid. And we're going to try something tonight that we don't usually do. We're going to sell you guys, because you're here, half-price tickets. You can meet Teji Thomas. Teji, raise your hand. Or Pete Gallo, if you're interested in pre-registering now. Otherwise, they're going to go on sale as they usually do. We'll put them up online and we'll alert you. Now, the most important part of the evening, of a Lucid evening, is this part right now, where you all get up and you all introduce yourselves to the person next to you, to other people in the room, and you meet each other, because that's really what we're here for. The cross-pollination of ideas, and these speakers are just kind of the icebreakers for you. So thank you all for coming, and we hope to see you again. Thank you.